What's going on, Broncos Country? Welcome to another edition of Bourbon, Broncos, and No BS. My name's 𝗕𝗿𝗃. I got the great, smart, intelligent, genius David with me here tonight. And we got the man with many ideas. Some of them are good, Jared.
You could have just left him at man of many ideas, and I think that would have been.
I think that he ran a little late, so there's his
he shows up right when the opening credit sequence is going to make it look like he was exactly on time.
Yes, and nobody would have known that I was late. Nobody would have known if I was late if you didn't say anything. I came right when I needed to.
John, fantastic question. Spotty is traveling tonight. Unfortunately, won't be joining the show. Although, since he's your best friend and we all love Spotty, but John's known him the longest, I feel like you're the one who's most responsible for him. So we should be asking you,
holding you accountable for this.
Yeah, absolutely. He is gone, and it is your fault.
It's 7 p.m. Do you know where your Spotty is? Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Start posting your comments and questions. We got a lot of awesome Broncos stuff to talk about tonight. Reviewing the season, reviewing this last game, the Broncos playoff game, which is still just crazy to say. But before we jump into this, make sure you're filling up your bottles, your glasses with a 5280 blend from Breckenridge Distillery. The blue one here, I think, was Randy Gradishar's. The orange one from Ed_McCaffrey. Guys, this stuff is freaking delicious. I'll tell you right now, about this much got me through Sunday. And here we are. I'm about ready for a new bottle. So make sure you check that out. If you don't like their whiskey, they also got their vodka as well, the Broncos Blizzard Vodka from Breckenridge Distillery. So great stuff from those guys. But with that being said, guys, let's dive right on into it. We got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. First off, just how you feeling? Rough game, wasn't great, but I don't think there's reason for concern or doubt or sadness really, other than the season's ending. But David, man, how you feeling?
Pretty good. All right, obviously it wasn't that fun to watch Sunday, especially after that really promising first drive with the long touchdown pass to Troy Franklin. But, we used the phrase house money quite a few times in preceding shows, and it luckily still felt that way when it came time for it, right? It felt like, all right, well, yeah, this sucks. We're losing. We're going to lose. But we weren't supposed to be here at all. And we can hold our heads high and say, man, we're ahead of schedule. And, man, we have a quarterback who he doesn't just look like, oh, man, he's this really high floor guy. He looks like he could legit be one of those dudes, maybe. I'm not saying that's still what he's going to be. But it looks like he has that potential to be that guy. And to be honest with you, I didn't know if I could say that about him. Certainly coming out of the draft or even heading into the season, could I say he's going to be as much of a dynamic playmaker, excuse me, as he was most of the season. And that's really, really cool to see.
For sure.
Yeah, I think you bring up, you said he's not a high floor guy, which is good. I think he is a high ceiling guy. And I think that's what we see in him, which is different than kind of what we've seen. We've kind of seen all the other quarterbacks before this. We know what their ceiling is. And we've seen glimpses of what his ceiling could be. And it's high. It's really high. It's up there with some of the top quarterbacks in the league. Mm-hmm. We just need to find the consistency there. I think that's the big piece. And as a rookie, it's hard getting in this league. He's getting some experience here. But I think I'm with Clayton. Irritated is probably the right word. I think in the chat we used disappointed dad. John did. More of the disappointed dad of man, we waited those 9 years and obviously it's happy to be in the playoffs, but did we have to go out like that? Of all the ways to go out, I'm a little bit disappointed that we went out the way that we did. Obviously in our heads, we all kind of knew that was going to be a tough game to win to begin with. Our hearts really wanted to be in it. And if you look on paper, it looks good, but our offensive efficiency just wasn't there. Defense was on the field for way too long, and they just got destroyed. It seemed like everything the Bills tried, it was successful. So, it is what it is, and we get to go into an offseason with high hopes and see what the movement does in the offseason.
Yeah. Well, look, before we dive into the specifics of this game, we're all thinking about how we feel, right? This is different than other years where we lost in the playoffs. We were in the Super Bowl window. We're trying to get either John Elway or Peyton Manning a trophy. This year was just, holy crap, look at where we've gotten to. And so I want to bring up this clip here from 𝗕𝗿𝗃𝗶𝗄. I'm sure many of you have seen it, but If you haven't, this is a great one here. So just let's listen in and kind of look at his emotion and hear his words from after the game.
Today probably sucks, but looking at the season as a whole, what are your emotions like now approaching the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, just knowing the kind of work that we put in this year, and we didn't get the result that we wanted. It stings, but I mean, I'm also proud because I know how many doubters we proved wrong this year. I know how many people didn't have us for nothing, and we didn't care. We just came to work every week, so I was really proud of the guys.
I see you're teary-eyed. The emotions as the season's ending, is that what's hitting you right now?
Just knowing where we started at, as a group, and just how far we came. Just really proud of the team.
What specifically are you most proud about? I mean, it was a long season with lots of ups and downs. Here you are making it to the playoffs too.
Just knowing the work we put in, just knowing how many people didn't count us in this year, and just proving everybody wrong. That's what kind of makes me happy about it all. From top to bottom, everybody just knowing the work that they put in.
Sure, man. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah. So let's think about that, guys. For me, I'm thinking about the motivation that this game is going to give the team going into the offseason. And if if you try to tell me that these players like 𝗕𝗵𝗏𝗍 aren't going to use the feeling that they had after that game to really push them forward to that next level, they got the experience, they got the team that is fighting for each other every single week. And now they're going to say, look, guys, we're just not at that level yet, but we need to get there and we're going to get there. And it starts with this offseason. So we're going to have a lot of conversation about free agency and the draft and all that stuff throughout the offseason. But these guys are going to be hitting it really hard across basically every possible way they can. And if you're talking about what that can mean for us next year, like this is going to be a team that's going to be coming out with a chip on their shoulder and swinging next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it shows you the culture that Sean has built there of, relying on each other and caring for each other. And I think a lot of those emotions, he didn't say it, but it's we're going into the offseason. We got to clean out our locker room probably today. They got back home, they're cleaning out their lockers, and it's going to be the last time some of them are on the team. And it's disappointing when a season ends, and regardless of when it is. But I think that's why he kind of kept his head up. Was like, we still made it. We still got to the playoffs. We proved a lot of people wrong. 5.5 was the win total recommended, or Vegas win total before the season. They did a lot more than they were expected to. And it does suck when a season comes to an end, but the culture there is really what should be shown there. They've built a culture of they believe in each other. They lean on each other. They love each other, and they're out there playing a game for each other.
Well, and we use that phrase young and hungry a lot nowadays. And it's like, well, let's see how hungry they are now. You've got guys like Bo Nix, like 𝗕𝗵𝗏𝗍𝗏, like Riley Moss, like Drew Sanders, who I would love to see maybe get into the mix at inside linebacker a little more seriously. A guy who, when he was drafted, there were conversations about whether he was going to sneak into the first round. He was that good. These guys who are young, Troy Franklin. And look, guys, there's a lot of talk about Troy Franklin maybe not making the roster, which I get, because on paper, it's a 4th-round receiver who had more bad moments than good, it really seemed like, in his rookie season. And there's no guarantees for guys like that going into their second year. But, if 2 or 3 of those guys can actually put in the work this offseason to get better next year and take another step up from where they were this year, there's a lot of really exciting things about this team going into next season if that can happen.
Yeah, and the fact that we have Bo, and another thing that we've talked pretty heavily on this show about is Bo's work ethic and his just grind and his care for. I think another interview that they brought up, and after the game they talked to him like, "What's your off-season plans? What are you going to do? You're going to go back home? Like, what's your plan?" He goes, "I really don't know, but I know that I'm going to be working. Like, no matter where I am, I'm going to be working." So I wouldn't be surprised to see something like what we saw when we first got Russell, where he's bringing people over. Let's go to the park. Let's throw around. Let's do some things in the offseason to get back on track. He's not going to go sit down on his couch and go. He'll go home for a couple of weeks. He's going to get tired. He's going to come back. He's going to put work in to get this team back.
Hopefully he'll rest his back to be fractured back.
Yeah, well, that too. But which for not for nothing, that happened before the Kansas City game, and then he went out and had the best game of his career. Against backups, whatever it is, you can say what it is, but even in the NFL, it's hard to do. yeah, it didn't seem to affect him that much. And even the throws he was making in the playoff game, it didn't seem to affect him too much.
Right.
But
let me bring this up really quickly because I had this ready to go. And just listen to how he describes it.
A long 18-19 week season. The biggest week was just, I had a transverse process fracture in my back. Made it through to that week. I got treatment on it, and then we were fortunate to have an off week. Kind of went away after that. But for that moment, it was, annoying, but 3 process fractures. But a lot of guys play with a lot of those kind of things.
Okay, so the thing that gets me in that clip is you have 3 fractures in your back, and you refer to it as it was annoying. It was annoying.
I mean, that's what it looked like it was
annoying
on the
is
field.
Like my back is sore in the morning, But going out there and seeing the hits he was taking, you go back and look, dude.
Bo's what, 23?
24.
24. He's not our age. I'd like to say that it's like when I wake up and roll out of bed after like a back day or a leg day where I'm
just
not
sleeping.
putting up a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Or sleeping wrong. And I wake up and I'm like, oh, well, that's annoying. And I'm like, I'm hobbling I'm not out there trying to throw 80-yard bombs. That's what I'm imagining he's talking about.
Yeah, right. No, absolutely. And but there were, obviously there's a lot of things that you go back to the season and now, and it's like, you remember that touchdown that I can't remember what game it was now, but it was a little bit of a crossbody touchdown in the red zone. Not fully, but he had to kind of torque it in there because he was getting it across his body to get it to a spot in the back of the end zone. And you saw him reach back immediately after. And I think that was after that is when he first showed up on the injury report with that back injury. And then,
but it was only for like one day. Like he was not on the injury. He was on the injury report for like one day, and then he just stopped being. And everybody asked, like, well, hold on, time out, whoa. And then it was gone. It was gone, and nobody asked about it, and was like, okay, cool, he's fine.
Well, and there was now a little bit more about why there were so few designed quarterback runs for him toward the back half of the season. He still scrambled. He was still a willing scrambler, but there was not a lot of design stuff. Yeah, and that's obviously why. And
it's almost like a good thing that we didn't know, because I feel like after that, every time he did scramble, I'd probably be screaming at the TV.
Right.
Don't do it, Bo! Get out of bounds, go down! Like, stop it! Like every time you see Tua run or do something stupid, like it's the same thing. Like you don't want him to get like touched.
Oh, just go down. Stop. No, just go down.
Dude, it's not worth it. It's safe to say that Bo Nix is a beast. He's a warrior. And in this next year, when he goes into the season, he's not going to be focused on just trying to learn his piece of the puzzle. While he still has growth to do, right? But he's going to be able to be more of that leader in the locker room. He's not going to be a rookie anymore. People are, the rest of the team are fully behind him. And it's just a situation now where not only we can talk about free agents wanting to come to Denver, but you're talking about players not just being happy that they're drafted, but getting excited they're drafted to the Broncos, and you look back the last several years, I'm sure there are a lot of people that are like, okay, Denver's cool. I'm really happy I'm drafted, but it's Denver. But now it's different. The feeling and the culture is just different. Like Ken here says, Ken, welcome back to the show, man. Yeah. This is a great comment.
I was going to say, before we pull this up, this is great. I was going to say, to your comment on people getting drafted, I just imagine the Simpsons episode where Homer inherits the Denver Broncos, and he's like, "Oh, the Broncos!"
Well, I think owning the Broncos is pretty good. Yeah, I guess. Well, explain to me why it isn't. You just don't know about football, Marge.
You don't know about football, Marge. But yeah, Ken, really appreciate this wraps up everything that we're all thinking and we've talked about in a good, like, if you were to like take everything we said and put it into 50 words or less, this is it. It was not supposed to happen. We are way ahead of schedule as far as a rebuild team. Obviously, that I wouldn't say the needs of the team are obvious. I almost say that the needs of the team are kind of open, and it's really putting pieces together as opposed to a glaring need. But yeah, the young players got valuable experience, winning 10 games and a playoff game. So Ken, I appreciate your comment there. That's puts it perfectly.
And it leads me into something that I was going to save for a little bit, but we'll talk about the draft through the offseason. Because I think Jared, you said that, and it made me think there is one thing I think that we saw highlighted as a need in this Bills game specifically, and that is a little bit more a different a different style of playmaking talent on the defensive front. And I think we saw a lot of the
front seven
Broncos,
or front four?
No, yeah, I mean really the front four. And we'll talk about inside linebacker too. But we've talked a lot about this during the season as well, about how the defensive line is more about generating pressure on the quarterback and how they really can get pressure from anywhere with those guys. But DJ Jones is really the only imposing run defender in that group, Malcolm Roach too. But I really think having somebody who could really be like a lockdown nose tackle or something like that in this defense, a big beefy one with that's something of a need to me going into this draft. It's a decent draft for that. But we'll talk a little bit more about that heading into the draft. But Jared, just a little bit larger point there of, I think there are some more sneaky needs on this team than, our season suggested. But we'll have plenty of time to talk about it.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are gonna, and we talked about this a little bit. A lot of people are gonna blame the defense, I think, in that game specifically. But there's a lot of pieces on the offense outside of that the first drive and then the drive before half were the only two drives that we saw any showing of life. That 2-minute drill, I feel like Bo put together a pretty good 2-minute drill in that right before the half. And then that first drive obviously was epic, and we were doing everything, driving down the ball, got the big touchdown. But outside of that, our offensive efficiency overall, and John and I'm glad Spotty's not on the show, so he can't do that "I told you so" dance. And I've been a big, I always sit here on Orange Weekly. If you guys have been following, I'm huge on defending the coaches, defending Sean Payton for his play calling. There was some questionable play calling, and it wasn't what the normal Monday morning quarterback saw. What I saw was run plays when the box is too full. We were running inside, and I don't know if that's on Sean or if that's on Bo adjusting at the line, because there was a couple times that Bo adjusted to an inside run play when the box was too full. There was no reason we should have run it. We only got like a yard because there was just too many people in there. So I don't know if that's a communication error or something he's just going to have to learn a little bit more in the offseason, or if it's something on the play call, like, hey, we're going to run up the middle regardless of what they're lined up as. Because if you saw literally any other professional team that's in the playoffs right now, you're seeing them adjust at the line. If that box is too full, bounce out of it. Call something different. Try something new. Don't try to stick with something if the defense isn't there. You need to line up. We saw way too many inside runs where there was like 11 guys in the box. Like, that's an obvious exaggeration, but there's like 9 guys in the box and we're trying to run it up the middle. It was just, and it obviously went nowhere. So and that happened on a couple of the Kev, right? You kept calling it out, like run, pass wasn't working for us. And we should have bounced out of the second run, or if he bounced into the run because he didn't like the coverage he saw. We really don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but there's something there that needs to get fixed. And that's going to fix our offensive efficiency if we can get them both on the same page of like, hey, don't run the box or don't run the ball when there's 9 in the box.
Exactly. And part of it was, when you're late in the game, you're down by a couple scores. Like, why is that the time throwing it up the middle on first and second down? You're already shown to be struggling on third down in general, and it just didn't make sense to me. But you go back to the first half, and while the score looks really bad, it's not like we went out at the very beginning of the game and just got blown out of the water. So we were more or less hanging with the Bills for the most part through that first half. The defense did a lot of bending and only broke, a little bit, but we went into halftime almost tied, but down 10-7. And, it was just after that things got out of hand. And you're talking about things that we need to work on, that run defense. And I want to get your guys' perspective on that. I mean, all year long, we've had a pretty good run defense, but this game, they were just running the ball at will, and we could not stop them. Cook ended with like a 5.8 yards per average.
Yeah, I felt like we just got out muscled. Honestly,
we did.
Yeah, we just got shoved off the ball every single time, and it was, we had some lighter defensive linemen in there. We don't have the heaviest D linemen. Yeah, we don't have the heaviest D linemen. That's kind of what I was talking about in the draft. And Ken, you're right. There's the playmaking tight end and running back specifically. Tight end and running back are super deep in this draft. There, Jared, you and Spotty, I don't know where this reluctance to say this running back class is deep comes from. It is. It objectively. Or you're talking more about tight end. Okay, that's fair enough.
No, running back. I'm talking about running back.
Okay, go ahead.
Tell me what running backs in the NFL are home run hitting running backs, because I can count them on one hand.
Oh yeah, no, and there's only
if you
really
want
one
a
in
home
this.
run.
No, home run.
Yeah,
you're right. No, you're right about that. And there's one in this draft. It's a deep draft at running back, but it's Ashton Jonty if you're really talking about home run hitting running back. And you're gonna like, I'm sorry guys, it's a really talent. It's not. There's not a lot of like blue chip talent in this draft. If you want, I don't want to trade up for Ashton Jonty, but if you want to, you're gonna have to. He's not going to be there at 20.
No.
So I would be much more in favor of going and getting somebody later in the draft. Go ahead, Jared.
But that's I think it's Sean Payton's system to have a running back by committee. I don't think he's going to switch to having a premier running back that you're going to have out there the whole time. I mean, I would love that in a way. I mean, we all know the main downfall of having just one main running back is if he goes down, you're kind of hosed. But it's just like, even in this game, Javonte, for all the, crap we've given him this year, except for you, Jerry, has been a staunch supporter of him, went out there. And in the very first drive, like, he was getting 5-yard carry, 6-yard carry. And then we swap him out. And then he'd go out there again. He'd get like a 4 or 5-yard carry, and then we'd swap him out. And so where's the consistency? We need to let one of these guys, if you're looking for the hot hand, to me, it looks like Javonte had the hot hand early on. Why did we not keep feeding him the ball? So it's like, if we go get a premier running back, is that really going to change the system? It makes me question, like, what is Sean Payton's mentality when it comes to the running back room?
Yeah, well, I said it in the tailgate talk when we were talking about why 𝗕𝗿𝗲 was benched, and afterwards, Coach Payton did say it's because of what he thought was the strength of the defense. Our offense versus defense, and we thought we had better strength with different running backs in the backfield, which is fine. And a lot of it comes down to, when you do that running back by committee, you pigeonhole yourself into what kind of plays you can call based on what running backs back there. Each one of them has their strengths, and over the course of the season, people are looking at that film to see, like, they are not running these 4 plays when this running back is here. So we don't have to worry about that. Now we only have to worry about these 7. Yeah, I shouldn't have let him get away with that. But that's why you want that 3-down back, so that there's no guessing, right? There's none of that looking at film and saying, when this running back, and we had the same problem with Phillip Lindsay, and again, the last 1,000-yard rusher we've had in the league. When Phillip Lindsay wasn't in the game, you knew that there was certain, or when he was in the game, there were certain things that he wasn't going to do. He wasn't going to run block. Well, he tried a couple times. It didn't work out for him.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so there's certain things that that they're not going to have that extra coverage, so you blitz, right? And then, or you do something else. You have a spy on somebody. So there's different pieces to that. A lot of the mind games, a lot of the strategy that goes into it, specifically with the running back. And when you have a 3-down back, and that 3-down back is good or decent in all 3 realms, then you don't have to worry about that in the running back by committee. So I'm interested to see. We didn't do it this year with Javonte. Javonte is a free agent now. That's why I'm wearing it. This might be the last time. This is my last jersey I have of an active team member. So I might have to go out and get me a Pat Surtain or
I'll lend you my Simeon jersey.
I need a Bo Nix jersey. That's my next call. He brought us to the playoffs. I'm gonna get him one.
All right.
So, yeah, it's different. And then tight end, I will talk real quick on tight end. There is a couple tight ends in the draft, I will say, and we'll probably end up getting one. I don't know if it's going to be in the first round. We're probably going to go best player available. Maybe interior defensive line, I think, is probably a good call. If that tight end from Penn State does drop, and there's a lot of hype around him because he was the only person to catch anything in that last game, then yeah, absolutely we go get him. But I just don't know if we go try to trade up for. I just don't think this is a draft that we try to trade up for anybody.
See, and I want to do a little bit of a rant here. Because I get what you're saying here, Ken, but to me, more than obviously you want playmakers at every position at the offense, and running back and tight end are positions where we didn't have home run playmakers at either, right, this year. But what I will say is Sean Payton is going to be multiple with his personnel. That's a big part of his offense is he runs out all these different personnel groups. The point of the offense is that he can run so many things out of these different personnel groups. I just don't think he has the personnel right now. He doesn't have, to the points we've been saying, he doesn't have the personnel at running back to make you go out. There's no Alvin Kamara on this team that when you put him in the game, he could either be running, under center runs or inside zone or outside zone, or he could be catching the ball out of the backfield and being really, really dynamic about it. And same at tight end. When you run the tight ends we have out there, we know if Adam Troutman is out there, he's going to be blocking. And if Lucas Krull is out there, he's going to be running a route. And yeah, they'll both try and do either at times. But for the most part, you don't have that tight end that is a true threat at doing both. And so it really does limit what this Sean Payton offense is able to do when it is switching up personnel groups the way we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
you saw Sean Payton. You saw Sean Payton lining up his running back as a wide receiver sometimes. Yeah. I mean, I think that Super Bowl run he had his. I mean, I think he lined up as wide receiver more often than he did as running back, and just because he knew that he could do it and he could switch it up and see what they did on defense if they move people around. If you're lining up a linebacker on the outside on your running back, give it to him, right? And then there's that piece that mind games thing, and I think you're right. I think there's a couple pieces and. In Sean's head, he knows what he needs. He knows what he's going to go out and get. He's going to try to go find it. So it's going to be on us to kind of sit back and be like, trust Sean, hopefully. And again, I'm glad Spotty's not here.
It would be. We'll bring that back up next time and see what his take is. But I mean, you look back and how much doubt was there around Sean Payton with the Bo Nix pick? I mean, Look, for all the people who are out there saying, oh, no, I never doubted. I was always on board with Bo Nix. There are a lot of videos of people out there freaking out, tearing off their jerseys when Bo Nix's name was announced, and just a lot of, I would say, hate and shade thrown to Sean Payton's way for making that pick. And now we're looking here saying, okay, well, maybe we really do have a very good, very solid draft analysis crew, and Sean Payton knows what he's looking for and can read these players very well. And I'm not going to say that every single one's going to hit, but between Sean Payton and George Payton, these two guys, man, if we keep drafting this way, we're going to be young and dangerous and just be able to grow this team up from the ground up in no time.
Yeah, that's what you saw this year. This year was his first year getting a full control of helping out with the draft and building his team. And I mean, we 5.5 wins before the season. Like he completely I don't know what the word I'm looking for. We beat the odds overachieved. We overachieved this year 100%. And that's because he has control and he has this was his first year of really having everything. Cause he came in around draft time last year and he didn't have his own scouts. He didn't have his own understanding. He was in the media before. He wasn't in the league. So I think now that we got some time and we've made the playoffs, we don't have that chip on our shoulder anymore. We're not getting shown as we haven't made it since the Super Bowl. There's going to be a lot of good to happen in this offseason, and we got to trust Sean to be able to go out and do that.
I want to talk to my inside linebacker bro here for a second. And I know I brought up Drew Sanders a little bit earlier, Jared, but we talked so much about how it's such a difficult position to adjust to in the NFL versus college. And I think when we saw him in limited snaps this season, but we did see him line up more at inside linebacker than at edge. But all the talk this offseason was about how they were going to try him at edge. And I was really bummed out about that. And I'm kind of excited now that you had Jonah Ellis and Dondrea Tillman, the undrafted free agent, come on this year and I think they each had 5 sacks over the course of the year. And that edge room is already so young with Benito and Cooper, and then now Tillman. And I really think they are going to just put him back at inside linebacker because they don't have that kind of depth there and that youth there. And I'm really, really excited to see what that could turn into.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember at the beginning of the season, we also had Baron Browning. So you had an edge group. You had an edge group that was pretty set. Like you didn't need an extra guy in there, especially someone that's going to adjust from playing inside linebacker for his college career going to that side. And obviously his injury didn't help him out, and he had to end up coming back from that. But inside linebacker is there's a reason why there's a C on the chest of the inside linebacker. There's a dot on, like, they're the ones calling the plays. They're the captain of that middle of that team. There's a lot to think about. It's the quarterback of the defense. Like there's a lot to think about when you're an inside linebacker. And you need someone in there that's going to be smart and be able to play both the run and the pass. And yeah, you want a sideline to sideline guy, but you also don't want a sideline to sideline guy that can't go up the middle and take on a 300-pound offensive lineman to plug a hole. So it's such an important part of the defense, and it really is kind of the center of what your defense is built around. And I think that got shown against the Bills for sure. Yeah, that we need someone in there that's going to be able to do that. And I love the guys that we have, but I think one more big piece in there would definitely help.
Well, that was, I mean, as much as it sucks losing 31-7 in a playoff game, right? The good thing out of this is they really did expose all the weaknesses of the Broncos. I mean, their game plan, like they knew exactly where they were weak, and they hit us in those areas over and over and over again. And so there should be no, the coaching staff and the front office should be able to go in this offseason saying we know exactly where we need to focus our efforts on and start prioritizing those. So, I mean, here's the other thing, guys. Like, it's not going to be fixed over this offseason, right? Yeah, we have a lot more cap space and we get another draft and stuff, but as long as we keep improving, as long as we keep drafting well, we get a one or two good free agents that can help us in this. Like, we're going to continue to make big strides forward. And so, pull up Dustin's comment here. Says it's pretty simple. I don't think it's pretty simple, guys. There's a lot of moving pieces, right? But we're going to get into all the conversation regarding free agency and stuff later on. But let's move on into halftime here, guys, and get some announcements out of the way. So refill your drinks and everything, guys. Remember, Breckenridge Distillery 5280 blend. Delicious stuff here, guys. And if you don't like their whiskey, you also got the Broncos Blizzard vodka as well. But always come out with a different kind of bottle and everything. I think this is 5 years now they've been doing this. So, and just really excited to see what they come out with next year as well. I know that we'll be drinking it on the show and just having fun. So, good stuff from them there, guys. Also, big announcement, fan appreciation episode, talking about doing something we've been doing for 5 years. This will be the 5th year, I believe, we've been doing that. And so January 28th, 2 weeks from tonight at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, we're going to be doing our fan appreciation episode. Tons of giveaways, Broncos gear giveaways. We're going to have some special guests, invite some of you up on stage to introduce yourself and have some time on air and just have a good time hanging out with you guys. Because at the end of the day, this show is all about you guys. And that's why we do this, interacting with you guys, taking your comments, taking your questions. The rest of us talk about the Broncos in our free time with each other anyway. So it's really fun to be able to get to do this with the rest of you guys. And so just make sure you're there. You're not going to want to miss it, to have a chance to ask some questions to some special guests we're going to have and win some Broncos gear. So big, huge thank you from all of us to you guys, the fans, for supporting us this year and for all the years we've been doing it. Also, next year is going to be our 10th season of doing this, guys. So we're going to have a lot of different things going on. I'm thinking, I haven't figured out exactly what we're going to do, but I'm thinking giveaways throughout the season and just a ton of different things to celebrate it being our 10th year. I'm telling you right now, if and when the Broncos hit 10 wins next season, we'll be giving away at least one Bo Nix jersey away. I'm just calling it out right now. So make sure you keep following us for all of that and all of the offseason content because we'll be pushing out videos, we'll pushing out shows, and we'll ramp up even more as we get close to free agency and the draft. So this is going to be your stop for Broncos shows, Broncos content, and just keep coming back and checking out more and have those notifications enabled. So hit the like button, hit share, hit follow, whatever platform you're watching us on, hit subscribe, and we'll come back for more with you guys. That being said, guys, get into the second half of the show. And I don't know. I kind of want to look back in the season as a whole and just kind of get your guys' takes on, when did you start feeling like, okay, this Broncos team is different? Can you pinpoint anywhere? Was it a game? Was it a moment? Does something stand out in your memory? I know I'm kind of throwing you on the spot here, but this was such a unique year from where we went in going, yeah, they should win more than 5 games to holy crap, we have a winning season at the very least. And somewhere along that way, all of us at one point or another went, okay, this team's different. This team's for real. So any thoughts around that, guys? Anything that stands out?
I'll go with the Tampa Bay game. And it wasn't really so much of a, oh man, we've really got something here, as a, man, finally our QB's got some fight in him. Right? Like the Steelers game, the Seahawks game, it really just felt like there was nothing that we saw from the preseason that had carried over. And then suddenly it felt like it was there in the Tampa Bay game, right? Like there was something, and it wasn't all the way there yet, but it was, we were finally seeing something of the guy that felt like we were promised a little bit. And, there were obviously up and downs from there, but it never felt like it did in those first two games after that point. It never felt like, oh man, are we totally hosed here? And that was really kind of a turning point in the season for me.
Like it.
Yeah, I think for me it was when we were 5-3, and going against a tough schedule in the second half of the season. But we were 5-3. We knew we were going to have tough games coming up in Ravens, Chiefs, and Falcons. All of those games were, at the time, obviously the Falcons were playing well. Were very difficult games. We were like, man, this is tough. But even at 5-3, we lose 2 of those, and we're at 5-5, which is, again, we're at 5 wins, 8 games in the season, right? And I think that's really what kind of turned it around for me. And I think, putting up 33 against the Saints. And then when we went into the Falcons, and that was another big game, 38 points against the Falcons, just shutting them down. Those were kind of 2 of the big ones that really was like, man, this team has more than just rebuild year kind of like feeling to them. You know what I mean? It was really we're 5-3 right now, and we're only 8 games in the season. We still have 8 more games to play. Like this is pretty cool. And then obviously making the playoffs was a huge and the fact that towards the end of the season, I think another big like momentum builder and of like, man, like, I can't believe it was and I really didn't believe it. Like, if you guys have watched the show for 9 years, we've been doing this for 9 years. I usually have my hibiscus out, right? That's how you pronounce it. And I usually have my hibiscus out, and I'm counting down. I'm saying we're not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. But the fact that we had 3 games to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like, oh, this is going to come down to the last week. And it ended up coming down last week, but we had it in our hands for the final 3 games to go into the playoffs. And it's like, we haven't had that in a long time, and obviously making the playoffs in a long time, but to have 3 games to be able to do it, it was really cool to see. And it was like, man, we have a team here that we have worth building around. And we've been talking about all season, regardless of the end of it. It's just nice to be where we are in a rebuild year.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll give you guys this one. I know the game was a loss, but when we went into Kansas City, and even though we lost by that damn blocked field goal, right? The fact that we were one of the closer teams to beat the Chiefs, especially in their stadium. I mean, we came pretty damn close. And that was a game that was not supposed to be close in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
And the fact that we took those 2 losses from the Ravens and then the Chiefs, and then we went on a 4-game winning streak, to include the Falcons, on the road at the Raiders, who we hadn't beat since 2015 out there, right? The Browns game was intense. The Colts game was intense. So, look, we lost those 2 big games. We ended up being 5-5, but we took that and we showed that we have real grit, real, just determination to keep this thing going forward. I mean, a lot of young teams could have had that experience in that Kansas City game and been like, man, that sucks. It's a bummer. Dwell on it. Let that affect your play down the line. But they bounced back very, very quickly. And that indicated that they had good leadership. They were all on the same page. They were fighting for each other, and they were not about to give up anytime soon. So, I mean, I remember sitting there before the Colts game going, wait, when's the last time we lost?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was the Chiefs game. Oh yeah, it's been a while. So I tell you what, that moment, not just saying that we almost beat the Chiefs, but then how we responded to that's something. And Sean Payton even said it, in terms of just one specific game, but last year's team couldn't have done that. any of the teams over the last 8 years couldn't have done what we did this year in terms of the way they bounced back and handled that adversity. So that was just so awesome to see. Ken here, the joint practice with the Packers changed the team. It was a huge confidence boost, and that's when the players started to believe in their QB and themselves. I don't know if a joint practice would really do anything, but I think, you could look at that and say, hey,
I mean, Kevin,
we're
you and
hanging
I
with these
were
guys.
You and I were there, and
Yeah.
we didn't see the defense as well from our vantage point, just because they were on the other side of the field that day. But the amount of noise that was coming out of that side of the field, like consistently, like cheering from the Broncos sidelines and staff, that was eyebrow raising. And that you definitely felt it going out of there after that. Like, man, the Broncos just kicked the Packers' ass a little bit. It sounded like today. And you didn't really know what that meant for the season. Then they went out and kicked their ass in the preseason game too. But it was like, all right, what does that actually mean? It's preseason. But yeah, I do remember that at least as being a little bit of an eyebrow raiser, especially going into it thinking, oh man, I hope we see some semblance of competence against this playoff team.
Exactly. So, I think that was one of their first experiences going up against another team that also young, determined, right? But had a little bit more experience, especially they were in the playoffs last year and they were the only 7th seed to ever win a playoff game up to this point. So for them to, kind of hang with those guys and say that, look, we can hit you just as hard as you hit us. We can defend you guys just as well as you can defend against us. Like that, pretty big motivational factor there. So I think it started early on, and the other thing you got to remember is Bo Nix is going to get all the first team snaps this year. It's not going to be, which QB is it? We're going to split it a third this way, a third that way, a third this way. Who's going to get the starter, starting with the ones this day, or, Bo Nix is going to be the guy. And to have even more of that continuity, that experience, and building, that foundation with the wide receivers, that's freaking phenomenal. So, man,
the whole offseason too, not just training camp, right? Like OTAs.
Exactly.
We're going to know, the whole team's going to know from start to finish this offseason who the guy is.
Yeah. And it's not just, maybe it'll be different next year, or maybe, in 2 years, this guy's still going to be around. Like, no, everybody knows. Bo's here to stay. Bo's here to stay. Favorite quote from Sean Payton after the game: "We weren't good enough. We didn't coach well enough." Curious, how would you guys grade the coaching in general this year? Maybe just one for the offense and one for the defense in terms of coaching. What would you guys say?
So there's two things I want to say. First, I'll get back to your question in a second. That quote is very Sean Payton-esque. That quote is, "Don't blame the players, blame me," because we've been talking about his leadership style, and he's very much of a leader from the front. Like, don't blame that the defense let up that many points. Don't blame the offense for only scoring. Blame the coaches, right? That's on us. And that's just a very Sean-esque. I don't think he's saying like, I'm going to go out and fire a bunch of coaches to get my guys. He's just trying to take the blame and trying to take the pressure off the players. And I appreciate that from him. It's hard to say as a whole from the coaching staff because game to game is different. You have good games and you have bad games, and sometimes coaches have bad games. It's okay. Players have bad games. Coaches have bad games. It happens.
Fair.
I think overall, how about I answer it this way? I don't see any coaches leaving in the offseason. No. I don't see us getting rid of any coaches or changing any coaching staff unless somebody gets interviewed to take a better coaching job somewhere else, right? Our DB coach might go take a defensive coordinator job somewhere, and that's possible. But I just don't see us letting someone go because they didn't live up to what they were supposed to. I think overall the coaching staff did a pretty good job of preparing this team, again, with a young team and what they had at the talent-wise. Remember, at the beginning of the season, outside of Pat Surtain, you couldn't name a senior the national media couldn't name a single person on this defense. Now they're talking about Riley Moss. Now they're talking about Nick Bonito, right? They're talking about Zach Allen, and people forgot that we even got Zach Allen. So there's a big piece of that, and that's a lot of the coaching.
And I think also you've got to grade two things separately if you're grading. And I noticed Jared got away with doing no grades whatsoever there in his answer. So I'm going to try and do the same. Because I think if you're going to evaluate the coaches here, you have to separate the, down to down play calling, week to week play calling from player development, which is also their job and maybe even a bigger part of their job. So
especially this year. Yeah.
Yeah. And so on the player development front, I think the coaching staff grades out very highly. On the down to down play calling stuff, yeah, maybe there's something to be desired, maybe on a week to week basis. But like Jared says, games are just different like that. It's just, that's the season. So, going into this offseason, I am really, really glad that we have the coaches that we have for that reason, for player development. Because, man, we've been talking, we keep talking about it, but it's still true. It's such a young team. And so to keep them together and to keep those essential core pieces together and developing and under the same coaching staff, guys who already know what they do well because they just went out and saw it for a year, it's so, so important to the continued emergence of this team.
It's crazy to think about. You're talking about player development, and one of the way Bo Nix developed over the year, and it goes back to what Leggy was saying, Jeff Legwold, several weeks ago when we had him on the show, where these players, they don't have time to focus on footwork one week and improve that, or work on this technique the next week. There's so much going on during the course of a week during the regular season that in essence it's break down the film, get the game plan ready, install the game plan, do the walkthrough, and go to the next game. But the fact that we saw Bo Nix actively develop week by week, and again, yeah, he had ups and he had downs, but it wasn't, he didn't plummet right at any point. So if he went down, if he made mistakes, even in the same game, you saw that attitude of that's in the past, I'm moving forward. And that's just such a rare skill, especially among rookies. It was just so awesome to see. And I think there was some level of player development there from the coaching staff that really, I'm not going to say enabled that, but helped foster that whatever innate ability he had in himself to do that. Like it really just brought it to the next level. And yeah, so Ken, this is a great comment here, man.
Yeah, go ahead and bring this up, and I have one more point about the coaching stuff.
Yeah, and I have a point about this. I think Bo is already doing this, and I think he entered the season doing this, honestly. I think as soon as he was named the starter, he was perfectly willing to do that. And so, for example, like you guys remember the 𝗕𝗿𝗲𝗃 triple bobble catch touchdown from that Kansas City game. And Bo came out and
ran the wrong route.
That's exactly what Bo said. And that was a way for him to, that's still a criticism of your young wide receiver to go out there and say, to bring that up to the media and, to say, oh yeah, he ran the wrong route, but I'm happy that he did that. I feel like that's still a very pointed and targeted and strategic thing for Bo Nix to go say. For him to be like, I'm holding you accountable because maybe we didn't have to have a triple bobble play. If you had run the correct route, maybe I could have just thrown you an easy touchdown on that play. However, bad process still led to a good result, and we can acknowledge that without encouraging the bad process. I think that was just a sign that Bo Nix has the total trust, and we've heard it from the offensive line, the wide receivers, the running backs all season about how much they respect him and how much they think of him as the leader, the guy on this team. I think Garrett Bowles called him a genius the other day. So you
kind of have to understand the Sean Payton playbook,
right? And
that too.
Yeah, and so I think that he's already there at that level, but I do think that going into another offseason where he just led the team to 10 wins and he just played with a back fracture for the last 4 games of the season or whatever, that there is going to be that much more cachet to go in next season and say, this is my team and this is how we run things.
Yeah, trust and leadership is earned, not given, and he's earned it. And I think you're right. I think there is going to be a level, maybe not to the Peyton Manning style of like getting in their face after they don't block correctly, but he has his own way of doing it. And I think he has been doing a little bit, and I do think he steps up a little bit more in the second half, like in the next season, and it's going to continue to grow. There's a downside to that as well. Look at Aaron Rodgers. Where
Okay,
you
but
become
Aaron
too
Rodgers
high
is
on yourself.
just an asshole. Aaron Rodgers is just an
Right.
asshole. Okay,
Where you become too high on yourself and you feel like you can't make mistakes and it's always somebody else's fault, right? There's a balance there, and I don't think Bo's going to go there, but just giving you guys an example of there's a way that could go wrong. I will say on the coaching part, I think another good thing that this coaching staff did is identify where their strengths in their players were. And I'll bring up the example of Marvin Mims, a guy that Sean Payton had inherited, right? He didn't draft Marvin. He inherited him, and he found a way through the season.
I don't think that's right. I think he was a 2023 draft pick.
Yeah, but Sean was only there for like that wasn't his draft class.
I'm pretty sure it was. I feel like he had input on every draft. He's been coached for 3 months. Yeah, he had input on the players who were drafted in his first. But season.
It wasn't his scouting. It wasn't his. He just looked at a board that somebody gave him, and that he didn't like.
I agree to disagree. Go on. Agree to disagree.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Anyways, but using Marvin Mims the way that he did this year and finding his strengths and using him in those strengths is a coaching piece too, right? Not just letting him die out as the third wide receiver because we just can't get him open for whatever reason or he's not on the looks. Because we have a rookie quarterback who only looks at his first 2 receivers, but figuring out ways to get him the ball and get him the ball in space and using him as a punt returner obviously was huge. I think all those things really, really played into just a player development, player understanding of what their strengths and weaknesses were. Using Nick Bonito the way we did, just amazing. Right there's just pieces that I think that are missed when people are looking at the coaching staff as far as down to down play call. And it's hard, man. Like it's so easy. Hindsight's 2020. It's so easy to sit there and say we shouldn't have run that ball, right? But there's so much more going on the field. There's so much more going on the tape. They're looking at their iPads. They're looking at plays called before. What have they normally called on defense? First down, second down. What are they normally in? Let's call this play because they're 90% time they're in a cover 3, so we're going to call a cover 3 beater. And the defense also knows that, and they're also playing like, last 90% of the time we're calling cover 3. Let's call cover 1. Let's see what they do. And it's a chess match the entire way for the coaching staff, and that's part of the reason I love it is it is a chess match. And just because you're calling something you think it's going to happen, it doesn't mean it's going to. And the Bills, if anything, the one thing that I noticed on that game, they play called against our defense almost perfectly. And there were some play calls that I was like, that is the perfect play call against what we just ran. And sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. You call in a play call, you only have 30 seconds to get it in, get them set up before the ball snaps, and it just happens. And that's part of the reason people do it. And there's a lot more that goes into it than just like run the ball on first down, pass it on second down. It doesn't work like that. So we have to kind of give them a little break. And that's why I say game to game is a little different. Sometimes you have bad games. Sometimes the other coach, call some random stuff that you're not expecting, and you call some random stuff they're not expecting, and it works out. And sometimes it doesn't. So
spot on, man. Good comments there from both of you guys. So Ken says Mims was Sean's guy. I don't think he traded up for Mims. I don't remember trading up for Mims.
He did. I don't think they had a second round pick, and Mims was the last player of the second round. So it wasn't like really far they traded up for him, but they did trade up a little bit for him.
A little bit.
Okay.
But the point we were making is, when Sean Payton did get into office there in Dove Valley, it wasn't his scouting team, right? He was kind of working with information that the Broncos kind of already had in place, right? And plus he was a commentator, he was in the media. So
right,
he wasn't really.
I think of Sean Payton as too much of a maniacal control freak to not be I trust him to I'm sorry, I trust him to have just stayed up, every single night until 4 a.m. for 2 weeks learning about the draft prospect. That doesn't sound like it's beyond Sean Payton to me. That's all.
Right, but he didn't have a whole year of watching all the film on everybody. He didn't build his own draft board. The draft board was pretty set, and he may have moved some people around. I don't know, man. 3 months is not enough time.
I get it. I get what you're saying. I just hesitate to go there and say Sean Payton didn't have. I can't imagine Sean Payton being willing to work with somebody else's draft board in a draft. That to me doesn't. But I don't know. None of us really.
But
know.
he didn't have. It's not like he had a choice.
Maybe
right? Like he
what do you mean?
he didn't pick his scouts. He didn't get to pick his scouts.
No,
He
you're
didn't
right.
get to,
But
like,
you're right. He did have to go off information that he was being handed by other people. But I can't. I also think that it's possible that he looked at that information and just based on their information and said, "Okay, we're not drafting this guy. We're not drafting this guy." But just based on what these people are telling me.
yeah, that I get.
Yeah. Anyway, I've seen this comment come up a lot, guys, and I want to before we get into closing thoughts, T. Higgins, and again, we'll have plenty of time to talk about free agency. I don't want T. Higgins, and T. Higgins is an excellent talent when he is on the field. I don't want to pay top 5 in the NFL receiver money for a guy who's going to play 8 games a season. I just don't want that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I am interested in. If we're going to go out there and make a splashy acquisition at wide receiver, I would like to, I've said this before, I would like to call the Jets and see what they want for Garrett Wilson. That is what I'd be interested in much more than signing T. Higgins in free agency. I know you have to give up draft capital, but man, it would be so maddening to spend money on a guy like T. Higgins knowing that he's not going to be there for you for 1/4 to 1/2 of your season on a year-to-year basis.
Right. And knowing the Jets owner and the way he is just less than smart, you could probably, swindle him a little bit, convince him that, a lower draft pick is worthy of a trade or something like that. I don't know. Or calling the owner's 15-year-old kid and, ask him to
what's Brick want for Garrett Wilson?
What does Madden
man's
ratings
Brick
say?
Yeah, do kids still like Razor scooters? Can we get him a?
We're still not going to talk about how a 70-year-old some guy has a 15-year-old kid, but whatever, teach their own. The whole thing's weird. The Jets are just screwed for a long time coming. But yes, guys, with this conversation, let's just focus on as we get closer to free agency. There's going to be a whole lot more talk here at Bourbon Broncos No BS. We're going to be doing shows. We're going to be doing podcasts. We're going to keep the content rolling out on videos on YouTube and Facebook and everything throughout the week. So we're going to be looking a lot at that and really looking at seeing, where do these players want to go to, what fits them, who can pay more. Because look, even though we have more draft capital or not draft capital, more cap space right now this year than we obviously did this last year, that doesn't mean I want us to go blow it all right away. Let's plan this out a little bit more. So maybe we get 1, maybe 2 good free agents that will stay healthy. How many players have we gone through free agency over the last 8 years that came in and got hurt right away, or played a few games and they were done, or came in with terrible attitudes and just didn't do anything for the team that way either, right? So I want us to be really smart about that. If that means we only get one player in free agency, fine. Let's save that money for later down the road, and really continue to focus on building a team through the draft. I mean, you look at the Chiefs and how they've built their team. It's been primarily through the draft. And you get those guys that you drafted, they're loyal to your team because you're the one that picked them, and you just develop them from the inside there. And that's the stuff that I really want to see more than anything. So, I'll
say this. Yeah. I do want to mention one more thing, and I think that it's kind of underappreciated, specifically this year. The strength and conditioning team of the Denver Broncos this year, just an absolute outstanding job. The injuries were minimal, and even the injuries we did have, they ended up coming back in a pretty good timeline. I really do appreciate the fact that we had a healthy team all year. I feel like we wouldn't be here if we didn't. Obviously the timing of Bo Nix's injury, PS2 went down for a little bit. You had Riley Moss go down for a little bit. You had Brandon Jones go down for a little bit, but they all came back, bounced back, and they were healthy. So in general, we had a couple injuries here and there, but nothing so significant really outside of the one wide receiver that we really put on IR and Josh Reynolds, who probably won't be here next year. We'll see.
He's already gone.
But is he gone already?
Yeah, he got cut like a few weeks ago, buddy.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Yeah, I thought he was still on IR, so he get paid. But yeah, it's just good on the strength and conditioning team, and I think that's something that was underlooked a lot this season. I don't think it was mentioned enough, and I want to give the shout out to them. And it was nice to not have 5 or 6 of our top guys on IR, especially if you're looking at some of these other teams. Look at the 49ers, look at
Lions,
even the Lions. Luckily, they have a deep bench and they built from the draft, right? And so it's nice to have. It was nice to have healthy guys out there.
For sure.
This team has turned it around in so many different ways. And if that doesn't give you guys hope, I don't know what will. I mean, you can't, to me, you can't sit here, even though we lost that wild card game, and not just be incredibly proud of what these guys have done and to bring hope back to Broncos country and play. It doesn't matter that they were young. It doesn't matter that they were inexperienced. They understood what the expectation is for the Denver Broncos from Broncos country, and they played up to that level. You know, they did the hard work and they made it happen. So tip of the hat to these guys. You know, it hasn't always been fun covering the Broncos over the last 9 years. I know John and I were talking last night about, there were several post-game podcasts where we looked at each other and basically, without saying as much, we were like, I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah,
how are we going to fill up an
years.
hour with this
Yeah.
game? You know, we don't want to do this. But now it's like, even after this game, like, it was a loss, but it was the most optimistic loss post-game show that we've ever done. And it's going to be so much fun. So again, you guys are going to want to stick with us during this off season, especially as we ramp up into our 10th season. So huge thanks as we start to wrap up, and stick with us, guys. We have some more closing thoughts, so don't go away just yet. But huge thanks to Breckenridge Distillery, not just for their whiskey, but all the whiskeys they put out lately of the Broncos and everything like that, but also just being good supporters of us. And so thank you very much. Mile high salute to you guys there. Mile high salute to all the fans. Again, remember, Fan Appreciation Show is going to be on Tuesday, January 28th, 2 weeks from tonight, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. If you love Broncos giveaways, if you love just seeing some special guests, having fun conversations, and just enjoying talking to other Broncos fans, that's the show you're going to want to be at. It's always a blast. It's one of my favorite shows throughout the year. And of course, considering recent years, it's it's kind of the highlight. Yeah, exactly. But look, it's always a fun time. And seriously, thank you all for all of your support over the years, and to see your guys' names keep coming back week after week, year after year. It's what keeps driving us here. So mad appreciation to you guys. So I think that was it, other than we do have a show next week on Monday night at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. We'll be doing a post-season review show. So make sure you tune in 8 p.m. Monday night next week. But we'll be putting out more announcements for that later on. So let's go over to David first, man. Here we are, end of the season. It's sad, but this is the least amount of sad after a season I've been in a long time. So what do you think?
Well, yeah, and losing to the Bills showed us we still have a long way to go, right? But it also it shows us that we could be another one of those teams in the AFC. And we've been talking for a few years now about how loaded the AFC is with Joe Burrow and Pat Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and you know, there's all of these teams around the league like the Jaguars or the Colts, or you know, guys who you thought, well, these teams might have the QBs to be the next team in that conversation, right? Well, now you have to have the Denver Broncos is one of those teams that's in the next, you know, maybe next in that conversation. And it's so cool to see. And I am so excited for what's next.
I love it. Jared, what do you think, bud?
Yeah, I'll say the last time I was this excited on Orange Weekly for an offseason was the year after Drew Lock ended 4 games in a row. And we thought that he was going to be the guy. But ultimately, yeah, no, I definitely am so happy and so proud of this team and what we've done. And I'm going to make a proud statement. And by that, I mean, I'm probably going to get eaten up for this. And as everybody knows, I'm always wrong. We keep Javonte Williams. He takes a team-friendly deal. He's going to be our running back next year. And if he isn't, the moment he gets traded, you'll not be able to contact me. I'll be up in the mountains, you know, in a cave somewhere for a couple days.
You and Dez can cry about it together.
Well,
yeah.
Quick question. Since he's a free agent this year, do you think he just takes a team-friendly deal to stay with the team?
So. I think they offer him a team friendly. I think they offer him a team friendly deal. He sticks around, and I think we keep him unless there's somebody out there. And if he does go somewhere, I hope him all the best. Kind of like I did Tim Patrick, right? Those are my two favorite players on the Broncos in the past few years. And if he does go somewhere, I think he goes somewhere and he just balls out. And I really do think he will. If somebody else picks him up, they're going to use him the way that he has the skill sets to do it. I still believe that, regardless of what you guys all think. He has the skill sets to be able to go out there and be a 3-down back and be a very, very successful one.
Yeah. Brad says, stop trading our good players. Dude, that's the definition of a rebuild. That's the definition of tear it down to the bare bones foundation and start over from scratch. So look, I don't expect that to continue. We'll trade whoever we feel we need to. That's going to be in our best interest. But look, you could be mad. I think you're probably referring to Jerry Jeudy. I don't know, but the thing is, these guys, Sean Payton and company, looked at saying, they saw the team for a year and they said, here's the direction we need to take this team. Which players are going to fit that? And, is there a trade we can get that's going to gain us draft capital? We know Sean Payton, George Payton, they all love getting that draft capital. And that's just one of those things. It's part of the sport when you have a cap space and stuff. So look, like Ken says, a lot of haters are just mad it's not being done their way. And now they don't want to admit they were wrong about Bo. So now they're doubling down. I don't care, guys. Come around to the side of just being able to sit back and say, holy crap, we have our QB. We have a guy that's a warrior. It doesn't matter if his back is broken. Literally, he's going to go out there and play some solid football for us. So can we trade Jared's hat? I don't know. I'd be willing to put up a 3rd-round pick for that. I don't know.
Whoa. We're getting a first. We're getting a first and a conditional. All right. We're getting a first and conditional. All right, Rod, for this hat. This is iconic and old and yeah, you can't get these. Beautiful. You can't get it anywhere. I tried. I Googled
it.
Fair enough.
Look, guys, it's been a great season hanging out with you guys. A great 9th year of Bourbon Broncos and OBS. Get ready for year 10. We are going to be setting up where it's going to be something really, really special. And the Broncos, I think, are going to help that happen as well, with a lot of wins coming down our way in the future. So get ready for it, guys. Look, we've been talking for well over an hour, and it's been a great show. But, guys, I have nothing left to say other than to end this show, as we always do, with a strong cheers and a very strong Go Broncos!
Go Broncos!
Take care, guys. We will see you soon.
Do what I like, yeah, do what I like, yeah, do what I like. Sipping goose, sip is right, and I go with the flow, yeah, I go with the flow, yeah, I go with the flow, cause I know I'm the show. In the zone, here I go, in the zone, here I go, in the zone, here I go, yeah, they know I'm a